if more people join, then that's fine.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on everything. Yeah, so hi, my name is Ella. I'm the Climate Force Project Officer for Community and Youth Development. So welcome to our Ask Me Anything webinar today. So as Laura said, it's focused on using VR as a communications tool. So this is one of the areas we've been piloting through the delivery of Climate Force. And our Ask Me Anything sessions are a series of lunchtime learning webinars. And oh, everyone's coming in. Hi, everyone. Just getting started on the intro. Yeah, so this is our lunchtime learning webinars, and I'll share the list of the remaining sessions at the end in case you want to join. So our presenter today is Laura, who some of you met, and she's our communications officer for Climate Force, and I'll be handing over to her shortly, but just a few housekeeping points to go over. The session is being recorded, so if you don't kind of want to be on this, then feel free to turn your cameras off. We'll be putting on our YouTube channel at the end of the session. Remember to just mute yourself when you're not speaking, and you can use the chat to interact at any point throughout. And if you need any tech support, then just let me know, and I'll try and help you. And we will be doing the Q&A just at the end. So just there's a Q&A bit at the top in the banner. Hopefully you can see that. You can pop questions in there throughout or just at the end, and we'll kind of pick those up at the end. So Climate Force, if you've heard of us before, it stands for Furthering Our Resilience Through Heritage, and it's run by the Inner Forth Futures Partnership. So this is made up of 9 organisations. We're led by the RSPB. We've also got Nature Scott, Stirling, Falkirk, Clackmannanshire and 5 councils, Green Action Trust, the Walk Wheel Cycle Trust and Historic Environment Scotland. So quite a few different names, which hopefully you've heard of some of them. And our project is 3.5 years long in total. So delivery is going to the end of 2026, and we're funded by mainly the National Lottery Heritage Fund, but we've got a range of co-funders as well. And we work within the Inner Forth region. So if you can see on that little map, it's quite hard to read, but it covers parts of Stirling, kind of like Southwest Fife, Clackmannanshire and Falkirk. And that's our core project area in the red. And then the wider engagement area is the blue dotted line, and that's where some of our activities also occur. Sorry, it's taking. So we've got a few different objectives of our project. One of them is we want to make sure the Inner Forth heritage is valued and kind of help to inspire to reach Scotland's net zero climate targets. We also want to increase the resilience of the area's natural and built heritage assets to societal and climate change, and also ensure that the places and people of the Inner Forth kind of have increased resilience to change. So allowing heritage to support the economy, healthy lifestyles, sustainable choices, and work towards the just transition as well. We kind of focus on 3 key themes, all to do with increasing climate resilience, but that's within communities, heritage and businesses. And we've got a lot of different activities on our project. There's 15 in total, and our aims are not just to kind of undertake these activities, but the pilot activities. So everything we do is kind of testing what works and what doesn't work, and this aims to inform other activities and projects in the UK or wider afield, and hopefully kind of aid delivery of these activities with the learnings in the future. So yeah, sharing learning is a key part of Climate Forth, and as we're progressing further into activities, we're trying to evaluate what we've done and ensure that this information is shared quite widely within other organisations, projects and local authorities. So I'll hand over to Laura now, but as I said, please do add in any questions in the Q&A section, and we'll get back to them at the end.
Cheers, Ella. And thanks for being here. I know it's lunchtime, so yeah, feel free to eat your lunch and have your camera on or off. It's all good. So the session today, hopefully you can all see the slides all right. Ella, does the slides look good? Okay, they look okay. Yeah, I've been Viviana, I think, had her hand up there. So yeah, are you okay?
It was an error. Sorry, I just wanted to say, yeah, I can see them.
Okay, brilliant. Nice one. Thank you. Yeah, so today we want to talk about how we have been piloting a virtual reality for the Climate Force project. I've been with the project since the start, really, of the delivery phase in August 2023. And it's been a pretty steep learning curve, to be honest. We will take a look at the experience that we developed. We'll show you little snippets from it, how we did it, go over what has worked well, and there have been some things that haven't worked so well. So yeah, just kind of tell you some of the pitfalls as well. And we are definitely not claiming to know everything about VR. And yeah, like I said, I've been on a very steep learning curve doing this activity as well. But hopefully you'll find some helpful tips if you ever are involved in working with virtual reality or augmented reality. And yeah, do let me know if anything is, yeah, do let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So why did we decide to do virtual reality? I guess a little bit of background on the partnership. The idea of using VR, it was first raised in the development phase of Climate Force, which was 2021 and 2022. And it was developed as a tool for communicating the impact of rising sea levels in the inner Forth estuary. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Scotland's geography, we're kind of in central Scotland, so between Stirling and Edinburgh. Um, yeah, central to East Scotland. That's where the Forth estuary kind of runs from. And our partners at RSPB had hoped to lease a site on the Forth, and they were wanting to replicate some work which they'd already done at another reserve, at our Skinflats Reserve. This process was called managed realignment, and they thought that VR would be a really good way of helping local people, landowners, decision makers to visualise this complex process, which I will go into a little bit more shortly, and you will get to learn a little bit more about it if you don't already know what it is as well. And then we also worked a little bit with Scottish Wildlife Trust. They are local landowners as well. They own Alloa Inch Island, which is a small island within the Firth of Forth, which is it's a triple SI. It's a site of protection, and it's renowned and kind of yeah, it's looked after for its intertidal habitats, wintering wildfowl, lots of waders that they get to the area, and discussions had been taking place on their side about, the island's future. It kept flooding, so they weren't really sure what to do and weren't sure how to manage it, and take things forward there. So both of these sites were at risk of inundation from the rise in sea levels due to obviously climate change. And VR was seen as an innovative way of modelling the possibilities to progress at each of these locations. It also meant that we could maybe take people. Neither of these locations were particularly accessible to people unless they kind of got, for instance, Alloa Inch. You would need to get on a boat to go and actually visit it. So VR seemed like a good way to transport people while they could just sit in their chair. So that was why we kind of wanted to make a tool that would be locally useful and relevant. So these two partner activities seemed like a good focus for the experience. So we got to work on this with Scottish Wildlife Trust and RSPB. And I think, like, in terms of our audience, our kind of target audience, which we'd been set by our funders, the Heritage Fund, National Lottery Heritage Fund, it's a very broad one. We have young people, 14 to 26 years of age. We have lowest 20% of SIMD data zones located in our project area. So that's an index used by the Scottish Government to identify areas of multiple deprivation. We had local communities and service users and landowners and decision makers. So we had a pretty broad audience to target with this activity. And we felt that VR could speak and appeal to quite a wide, diverse audience and offer a visual approach to convey the effects of rising water levels on the landscape. I think as well it's a unique way of learning about climate resilience and coastal management because you get to watch and absorb rather than being talked at. And it can also, as I mentioned, take you to places which wouldn't normally be accessible from the comfort of your chair. We had looked into VR setups that would be mobile and transportable, therefore being good for engagement at conferences and events and consultations. And it would be usable and accessible for everyone from decision makers to the general public. And as Ella said, this was it's all a pilot project, Climate Force, so we have been testing the efficacy of this virtual reality probably since last August now. We've been using it at different occasions. So how did we continue once we had that idea developed and we had partners on board? Well, we probably are familiar that you have to do like a tendering process. So we prepared an invitation to tender, we added that up to Public Contract Scotland. We had around 30 applications from contractors who were interested in doing the piece of work for us, developing the VR. We carried out a scoring process, we checked references, and we appointed the most suitable contractor for the project. And then we had a startup meeting to plan our approach. And as you probably know, not everything goes smoothly. And the original site that the RSPB were going to lease on the 4th, the planning on that and the lease actually fell through. So we had to think about a different site and a different geographical basis for the VR tools, which I will come on to a little bit more. In the end, we decided to focus the main virtual reality experience on our RSPB Skinflats reserve, which I showed you a photo of earlier, and we'll get to know a little bit more about when I show you some video clips too. And then we decided to concentrate on a short virtual tour to be able to take people to Alloa Inch, that was Scottish Wildlife Trust's reserve on the 4th too. Just in case you're interested in replicating something similar or are interested to know, we sourced our kit. We took some advice from the VR developer, and we also did some research online of what the most reasonable, and the most kind of valid for what our experience was. So we whittled it down to 3 Pico 4 Ultra headsets. Which you can see there, some lovely pink headphones, so we could kind of like eliminate any noise if we were doing it in a busy event space. 3 power banks for charging, a couple of cases to transport, and then we are also, we just try and wipe it down after every use. I know COVID is not so much a massive thing to think about anymore, but we still kind of like to keep people as safe as possible when we are using it. We also have a health and safety advice poster that we take out to every occasion that we're using it. And that just advises people of any medical contraindications or concerns, because it's not obviously suitable for all people to use the VR headsets. And we also have a risk assessment, which we took internal advice from RSPB about, and we've adapted that for each event that we go out to. We chose headsets to stand the test of time, and we read reviews online, and the particular ones that we have worked really, really well. They're very simple to use. They don't need to be linked up to Meta. Facebook, you don't need to have a Facebook account connected to it, which a lot of the Meta headsets do require. So that felt like it just felt like an easier way of operating things for us. It's almost like it's a standalone thing on its own. So I'm going to try and play you the longer version. It's like a 2D version of the virtual reality product and tool that we developed. But this one is obviously it's a 2D version, so it's not going to be the same as having the headset on and experiencing it in the virtual world, but it'll give you an idea of what it looks like. And we also offer at events if people can't use headsets, for instance, for any medical reasons or just through personal preference. We also have a laptop or tablet set up with this, and they can just watch it with headphones on.
As part of the Climate Forth project by Inner Forth Futures, we are now going to take you on a short journey within the Inner Forth. The first is a major estuary in the central belt of Scotland. Hundreds of years ago, it was edged by swathes of mudflats, salt marsh and saline lagoons that are known as intertidal habitats. These habitats supported huge numbers of birds which fed on the abundance of insects and fish. Large-scale reclamation of the intertidal areas began in the 1700s, initially for agriculture and then in the 19th and 20th centuries for industry. This led to a loss of intertidal habitats and the wildlife that depended on it. However, the Forth estuary remains extremely ecologically important and is protected by international and national designations. Recently, salt marsh and mudflats have been recognized as being beneficial for wildlife, acting as a buffer against storms, flooding and sea level rise, as well as being a major carbon store. The cost of maintaining existing flood embankments can be expensive, and as a result, there is a need for projects that focus on restoring these valuable assets. One of these projects has taken place at RSPB Skinflats. RSPB Scotland acquired its Skinflats Reserve in the 1990s to protect the amazing habitats of the site and with a plan to restore intertidal habitat. The focus site for looking at restoration was an area of rough grassland located behind and sitting on low-lying land. The objectives were to create 9 hectares of new intertidal habitat, improve the site for wintering waders such as redshank, curlew and oystercatcher, and act as a demonstration site for coastal adaptation. In what is known as managed realignment, secondary defences were created around the grassland that was going to be inundated by water from the Forth to make sure that none of the surrounding land was affected. The material for these new defences was excavated from the site and left behind holes which were then shaped into new lagoons with islands emerging from them. Once the secondary defences were in place, a section of the old flood embankment was removed to allow the Forth to flood the site. The amount of water that flows in depends on the tides, but is all contained by the secondary defences. As the water from the Forth entered the site, the habitat started to change, with plants emerging that can tolerate the salty water, and small fish and insects drawn into the lagoons, which in turn provide food for birds. Within a couple of years, the site resembled the salt marsh and mudflats that used to be there before it was drained for farmland, showing just how quickly nature can return if the conditions are right. As the vegetation grows and sediment builds up, carbon is trapped, with the site making its own small contribution to addressing the climate crisis. The managed realignment has restored intertidal habitat on this small area of the Forth, but if we are to adapt to a changing climate and prevent biodiversity loss, we need to see more projects like this happening on a larger scale.
So obviously, the virtual reality experience doesn't have the photos and the video kind of interspersed. It's just the 2D version. But it definitely helped to, it definitely helped people to grasp the idea of what we did at Skinflats so that we have now We've now started working on another project quite close to skin flats, and we use the virtual reality as a tool to show the landowners what we would potentially do at their site as well. So it's been quite a good tool to show them and help them to visualize exactly what that concept is, and made quite a difficult, quite specific term and idea and concept, made it a little bit more digestible for people. So yeah, that gives you an idea of what our kind of experience looks like. I am just going to find the next slide. So what has worked well? I think, although the focus now differs from the original concept because permission on the piece of land that we were going to base this on fell through. So we had to kind of think, right, well, let's base it on our skin flats reserve, and then we can use that as a tool to communicate what we did there as a kind of blueprint for others to follow. So although we did have to kind of make that change quite early on, we now do have a product which visually conveys the complicated process of managed realignment, like I said. And the fact that our VR setup is really compact, mobile, has made it easy for us to take it out to events, easy to set up, and it's relatively accessible as well. And you can see, I think there's a little boy at one of our events. He was getting really into using it, and he came back 3 or 4 times to have another shot. So yeah, he was obviously a fan. And once developed, I guess any team member has been able to use and instruct people on how to use the VR. It's pretty simple. Just need to be trained in the use of the hardware and the headsets, but if I can do it, anyone can do it. That's the general vibe to let you know and make you aware of. I think generally people are really enthusiastic about the virtual reality, and for many, when they try it out, it's their first experience of using it. And their reactions can range from from being quite excited to wow, that was really strange, or that was really weird. So it's been nice to see how people react. I think having clearly laid out health and safety guidelines at all events, we have a little laminated sheet where people can just check that they're safe to use it and don't have any medical conditions that would stop them. That's been a good thing to have, as well as being quite strict about the risk assessments. And then having that 2D video version that we just showed you there, just so that people aren't missing out if they can't use the headsets as well. That's been nice to kind of increase the accessibility of the experience too. Budget-wise, we did, it does sound like a lot of money, but in terms of the equipment, contractor and event costs, we set aside 30,000. But if you wanted a more fancy, all singing, all dancing, shiny experience, you could expect to pay possibly double for that. And we kept it offline, and it means we don't need continual updates online. So it kind of is, it just keeps working on those headsets. And it should keep working for the foreseeable future, which is good. Also, you can see the little tour there that we made for, it's a little screenshot of the tour that we made for Scottish Wildlife Trust. And they are pretty happy with that. It's not entirely finished, but that will allow them to take people virtually to the island and show them about the changes that they are intending on making too. So those are the things that have worked well. Desi, I think, Desi, if you've got a question, do feel free to come in.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Laura. Yeah, just on the subject that you're talking about there. So, did the cost then and the product that was handed over from the contractor, has that allowed you guys within the team has it given you the training to develop stuff yourselves, or are you having to re-engage with a contractor, for example, for the Scottish Wildlife Trust Island, or are you guys at a level now where you can develop certain things yourselves, or?
Oh, I think that's debatable. I would say probably not develop it like ourselves, but I think I would very much know more of what to ask a contractor for now, and be more like confident in vocalizing like what we want and what we need. Because you do like to be like a VR developer, it's quite a technical role. So and that isn't personally me, like that's not my strong suit, or that isn't really something that I feel confident in doing. So I wouldn't say that any of our team would be confident in developing VR, but we're definitely really confident using the kit, explaining it all, setting everybody up on it. And that those things are now ours. And then similarly with Scottish Wildlife Trust guided tour, they've had the training to use that. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. So no, probably not developers, but very confident in using the tools. I think that's probably the best way to answer it.
No, that's great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, so what hasn't worked so well? Let's have a look. As we know, there's never any like one size fits all when you're working on activities and projects, and there have been elements that I guess have proved a bit more challenging during this activity. For start, the staff who did the VR research in the development phase, they had moved on, and I wasn't involved in any of that research and the kind of initial conversations about why virtual reality was a good idea or why they wanted to do it. So I think some ideas were lost maybe in that staff changeover between the development team and the delivery team, of which Ella and I are now a part. And we were kind of starting from scratch on a lot, and none of us really knew that much about virtual reality. I think contractor relations and communications with them could be challenging at times. There was often a gap between what we wanted and what they gave us, and then lots of toing and froing to try and make them understand what we needed. So that could be quite time consuming. And I think they needed more input from us than we had anticipated. So at one point I had to source the voiceover artist, and myself and some colleagues also had to draft up a script and a storyboard. And I think we had maybe just thought that the contractor would do a little bit more of that. Again, kind of like what I said to Desi there, it's just about expectations and just sort of managing expectations on both sides and having really clear conversations with your contractor right at the start. So this activity did experience significant delays, and several of the stakeholders that we worked with during the development period who said that they would be interested in getting involved, they couldn't commit to helping us in the delivery phase. So we did have a couple of setbacks. I think as well we had a big response. We had over 30 tenders, which was really time consuming to score and select from, and it felt like there must be a better way to recruit the right contractor. Don't know what that is yet. If we find out, I will certainly let you know. And then something that we kind of thought about as well, VR can be viewed as a kids activity a lot of the time as well, and kids are certainly really savvy using this kind of tech. Definitely noticed that they're using it in school, they're using it at museums. And if that's your audience, then great. But if you're making a more serious type of experience like what we have, I found that older generations and people from different age groups, I guess, they can either be really into trying it or they can really be not into trying it at all. So it's just something to keep in mind. Let's see what else hasn't worked well. I think, in the end, we worked to develop the virtual tour at Alloa Inch, and we worked to develop the experience at Skin Flats. And although we didn't set out to do those things, we still have things that we can use. We have items and we have tools that we can use. So all has not been lost. I think just going to show you just the ways that we promoted the VR experience. We did a lot of in-person events, a lot of conferences. We did some freshers and sustainability fairs at local universities, colleges. We did a nice classroom session with a master's in heritage at Stirling Uni. So having those nice like local education contacts has been really, really, really effective as well. Then we've done some group sessions with Scottish Wildlife Trust, RSPB, and then we've been advertising it that we're going to be having it at events on social media. Just going to move on to the next slide. Any other challenges or limitations? I think tailoring one experience for that very diverse audience is always going to be a challenge. We wanted to kind of hit the audience of young people, local communities, policymakers, decision makers. So yeah, have we managed that? I don't really know. It is tricky to kind of make a virtual reality experience for a very wide audience. I think looking back, we probably should have made the invitation to tender more explicit. We should probably have been more specific in our communication initially with our contractor as well. It might have saved a little bit of time. I think the quality of the initial versions of the product we received needed a lot of tweaking. A lot of the graphics looked blurry, the sound levels weren't right, it wasn't mixed properly, so there had to be a lot of adjustment there. And I still think that the graphics could be better. VR is no longer, I think it's no longer viewed as new as and as exciting as it used to be. I think many people now own them for gaming, and some people, we found are not keen to use it. Maybe a higher end experience, like what the woman in that picture is kind of interacting with, that would possibly be more attractive to users. But like I said, that comes with a higher price tag and scope and space needed for that kind of thing too. It's been quite difficult to gather feedback for it. We've been asking everybody who uses it a set couple of questions, but a lot of the time people just say, oh yeah, it was good, and then they just, at events they kind of they're keen to get on to the next thing, so a lot of people don't have time to give you feedback. Having said that, despite all these challenges along the way, you can see from these comments, this is just a selection of some of the feedback that I've had after people have used it, that they are, it has mostly been a positive batch of feedback that we've had. So someone said, I'm worried about climate change, this helped. I prefer to see things rather than being spoken to. I feel less helpless, like people are investing in things that make a difference. It's good for short attention spans, highly accessible, informative and fun. So yeah, I think hopefully we've managed to achieve some of our goals, if not all of them. And would we have done anything differently? Well, yes. I think appointing a contractor with more experience in doing virtual reality and ask for more examples of their work if you're unsure of their suitability for your specific project. Don't be afraid to ask for more information. That's definitely something we probably should have done. It would have been nice to add music to create more atmosphere, but we simply ran out of time to get that into the experience. And we would have had to have licensed music, and that would have delayed it even more. So we decided to just go with the voiceover. It would have been probably nice to have a light touch element to it and more of an entertainment slant, but the concept that we were trying to convey, it was pretty difficult to do that for the managed realignment. Something that we are actually looking into is adding subtitles into the actual headset version as well for those who that would benefit as well. We had a lot of feedback, especially from the younger audience, on we want more birds, we want more animation, we want to see, more kind of real life stuff in that virtual world, which I totally agree with. The team agrees with as well. But again, this was just restricted due to our budget and just the limitations of what the contractor could do for us. So again, it just comes back to that: communicate clearly and try and really grasp what they can provide you with. I think as well, like, be cautious when putting together your invitation to tender, and just don't assume that the contractor will be the answer to all your problems. And I think really that is it. So I think we probably should see if anyone has any questions or thoughts or any observations. Very happy to answer any. And if not, some other people had sent a couple in advance, so I can try and answer those for those people. So I'll maybe. No one's got anything to ask. Desi again, I think. Yep, carry on, Desi.
No, I think you're just going to say, Laura, your point about lessons learned there, and it is very interesting in terms of whenever you're developing something like this. I suppose you need to be really clear on who you're targeting it to. So I think, listen to what you said there, it makes sense. The levels of success and how you would measure that would depend on, are you building a video to entertain, young people in the community, or is it to assuage farmers' worries about, knock-on impacts on land, or is it to influence a policymaker? It would probably be a different product as in terms of a visual product that you would want it for each of those, whereas going by this, you've sort of built something quite general, which absolutely ticks the box for us to a certain level. But if, depending on what your ultimate goals are, you would be wanting to make it more specific, wouldn't you? Which then costs money, it means more work, doesn't it? So
that's it, exactly all of that. And I think, definitely. I think, if we were doing, I think that was the trickiest part, probably. The trickiest part was trying to make something that would sort of do the more academic stuff, but also that kids would enjoy just for 4 or 5 minutes, just to kind of zoom over the forest and just see the landscape. And a lot of them are saying things like, oh wow, I felt like I was in an airplane. And so they're just enjoying that experience as well, and they might not be listening to all the complicated concepts that we're talking about, but they're still enjoying that kind of being high up like an airplane, like a bird. So they are still getting something from it, but it definitely is hard to tick all the boxes for all those audience groups, for sure. But if we'd had more money, that's what it all comes down to.
Money and time, yeah,
money and time. And I guess some other people had asked some questions in
Laura,
advance.
Is there another question? Emma's just popped a question in saying whether demographic variations in people's feedback, and could VR help us reach new audiences?
Could VR help us reach new audiences? I mean, I think, were there demographic variations? Emma, come in and say, what do you mean? Explain a little bit more, just so I explain a little bit more what you mean.
I was just wondering, did young people have a different experience to older people? Did different people receive the VR experience differently? And kind of, I wondered how useful it could be for reaching out to kind of some harder to reach groups.
100%. And I think, kind of like I said there, a lot of the kids, a lot of their reactions initially when they kind of put the headset on, and we were just supervising them so that we could see what they were, what their reactions were, and they were very animated and very excited and going, wow, this is amazing. And they were very kind of vocal about how cool it was and this is awesome. And I think I think for them, most of them just enjoyed that kind of experience of the VR thing, because a lot of them hadn't used it before. Some of them I was really amazed at what they took away from it. Like there was one young boy, and he said, "Oh, I didn't realize that was happening I didn't realize stuff like this was happening on my doorstep." And and you just think, oh, you really listened to that, didn't you? You really paid attention to that. So that was lovely, and a lot of kids were like, oh, I didn't realize climate change was happening here. So it kind of got them thinking about things that were local to them, which was really nice. And then a lot, I guess, other, I don't, yeah, without, I suppose like older people know about climate change, but some people commented that it sort of like re-emphasized that you can turn a negative thing like flooding, you can turn a negative into a positive, and that it made them feel like there were things could still be done almost. So it kind of re-emphasized to them that climate change is a thing, that it is happening, that we do need to build resilience, we do need to mitigate it in some ways, and that you can turn a negative, such as flooding and rising sea levels because of climate change, into a positive for nature and biodiversity. So yeah, there definitely were variations in how different demographics reacted to it, and I think it definitely could help you to reach new audiences. I think for us, it's helped us with the decision making quite a lot as well, and but at the same time, when we've just had members of the public coming up to our stand or coming up to our stall, it's actually got them. We've kind of got them in through the VR experience, but then we've been able to talk to them about all the other elements of the project, whether it's like the sustainable bike bus that we use, or whether we're talking about our work with communities. So it's kind of a way into talking to them with the rest about the rest of the project. It's almost like a hook. I think it kind of hooks people in. So yeah, hopefully that answers a little bit.
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent. There is any more, Ella, or do you want me to just answer a couple from the
Yeah,
other
nothing else
ones?
in the Q&A box, but obviously feel free to put your hands up if anyone has any questions. But yeah, maybe just grab a couple from the questions.
I think on the questions that had been sent in previously, which part of the experience tends to resonate most strongly with people? It's kind of like what I said about that young boy. He said the fact that things are happening locally due to climate change. I've heard that a lot, and that the rise in water levels are happening, here in their part of the world, and not miles away. And I think the being immersed in the world, people seem to really, really enjoy that, and that seems to resonate really well with them. How do people's reactions differ compared to more traditional climate communication methods? I think I've kind of answered this. Usually a lot more enthusiastic. There's a lot of wows, that was awesomes. They seem to enjoy being immersed, as I said, and they feel like they've really experienced something rather than sitting listening or watching passively. Biggest tech challenges in creating the VR, again, probably have gone over this a little bit. Our expectations and budget versus the contractor's ability to do these things for the budget. And then thematically, I guess, agreeing on what to base the experience on. We had a lot of partners to keep happy. And we had a lot of audience groups to tick off as well. What do we hope people take away from using the VR? Again, mentioned some of this, that climate change is having impacts locally. Hopefully people will have a greater understanding of managed realignment and what that means for people and for habitat and wildlife. And that although flooding and the sea levels are pretty scary to a lot of people and living in the inner Forth, and they're very tangible things, those things are very real and very tangible, that there are things that we can still try and do to turn turn these negative situations into positives for people and for wildlife. So that would be my main takeaways from that. Probably, yeah, I'm aware we're kind of coming out of time, so I'll just finish up with one of these ones. Let's see, what common misconceptions? I think what has surprised me probably the most about this whole process, I think it's the extremes of people, the extreme reactions of people. Some really strongly do not want to try VR and say it is not their thing. And then other people want to come back and do it 3-4 times because they enjoyed it so much. So I think it's very subjective. It's not for everyone. And I think it's just about being okay with that as well. Not everybody's going to love it. Not everyone's really going to want to try it. So you just need to accept that. I think there's a little comment coming as well. Not a
just Lizzie saying that it seems like a really good tool, which I agree with.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And I think there's a load of scope in conservation, just to help visualize really. I think that's, and I'm very much a visual thinker and a visual person. And I think people have really, really, really seemed to be receptive to that. I think that would be my overall observation, that people enjoy that kind of immersive learning rather than being presented to. So yeah, hopefully that has helped.
Yeah, we'll get to the end because I appreciate everyone's probably on their lunch breaks and busy. But totally. I'll obviously, if you've got any other questions, you can email the Inner Fourth inbox or me and Laura. But yeah, just to let you know, there's some future Ask Me Anything sessions if you're interested. These are the dates. You can just sign up in the same way and come along. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming along today and learning a bit more about the Climate Fourth project. I really appreciate you taking the time. And obviously, thanks to our funders, the National Lottery Heritage Fund and the co-funders that made this possible. We'll be gathering a bit of feedback on these sessions. So Laura will send an email around shortly, a little survey. So it'd be much appreciated to give any feedback on these as well.
And if any of you are doing, thinking about it or, going forward, we're happy to be contacted as well. That's the whole point. If we can help other people, their experience be a little bit easier, we're happy to be contacted. So yeah, all good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks for being here, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.